Last warning, next time,
Honorable Ministers, senior government officials, the media fraternity, viewers and listeners, welcome to the 29th post-cabinet press briefing. To lead us in our discussions, let me invite the chairperson of the session, the Honorable Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Dr. Mswere. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. Thank you, members of the State. Cabinet considered the report on the food deficit mitigation strategy, urban cash transfer program, and the movement of grain as presented by the Minister of Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare, Honorable July Moyo. The second phase of the grain distribution is progressing well, with a significant increase having been recorded on the quantum of grain moved. The Grain Marketing Board is replenishing depots, allowing for improved distribution within the stipulated timeframes. Regarding the Zundiramambo Espasha Senkosi program, all chiefs nationwide have been allocated to respond to distress calls covering the most vulnerable members of the society while they are waiting for their monthly allocations. So far, 4,195 metric tons of grain have been collected by the chiefs. Pertaining to urban cash for cereal scheme beneficiary registration, which is underway across urban domains, as well as data cleaning, validation, and pay sheet generation for the wards whose registration process has been completed. A total of 7 million ZIG was disbursed on the 13th of September 2024, and the distribution modalities are ongoing. As at 12 September 2024, a cumulative total of 3,859 milli-meal or maize grain had been collected under the Emergency School Feeding Program. Cabinet noted that the school feeding program has commenced well, with schools managing to provide hot meals for their learners. Cabinet considered and approved the roadmap for the formulation of the National Development Strategy 2, which will run from 2026 to 2030, NDS 2, as presented by the Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion, Honorable Professor Mthuli Mure. The development comes at a time when the National Development Strategy 1, 2021 to 2025 is coming to an end in December 2025, with notable achievements in the areas of fiscal consolidation, monetary policy restoration, the liberalization of foreign exchange market, structural and governance reforms, infrastructural development, engagement and re-engagement, investment promotion and support to the productive sectors were recorded under NDS 1. NDS 2 will be the country's second 5-year medium-term plan towards the realization of the country's Vision 2030. It will contain strategies and interventions which will ensure sustainable, inclusive growth and development, innovation for modernization and industrialization, adaptation to climate change, eradicating poverty, and promoting sustainable livelihoods of the vulnerable members of the society. The process of coming up with the NDS 2 blueprint is set to take 18 months and is scheduled to be completed in November 2025. The preparatory stages started with the launch of the economic census that commenced in May 2024 and will run until June 2025. The crafting of NDS 2 will start with stakeholder consultations to come up with national priorities, which will be the key pillars for the NDS 2 formulation and implementation. The national priorities will be crafted by 15 November 2024, followed by the crafting of NDS 2 thematic working groups and strategies formulation from February 2025 to May 2025. NDS 1 terminal evaluation will be carried out during the period April 2025 to June 2025, followed by NDS 2 drafting from June 2025 to October 2025. The draft NDS2 will be presented to Cabinet for approval in November 2025 and thereafter lodged for implementation. Cabinet considered and approved the memorandum on the mock-up exercise for war collaborators and non-combatant cadres as presented by the Minister of Veterans of the Liberation Struggle, Honorable Senator Monica Mavunga. The exercise represents the last major phase of a comprehensive verification effort to ensure all legitimate veterans of the liberation struggle are accurately recognized and appropriately honored for their contribution to the nation's independence. A total of ZiG 47.2 million has already been availed to the Ministry of the Veterans of the Liberation Struggle for the exercise. The post-vetting assessment revealed that over 90,000 war collaborators and non-combatant cadres still require vetting. It was also realized that a significant number of war collaborators were excluded due to an age limit imposed by the existing legislation. Despite their recognition by wartime commanders as being among the most agile and effective participants in the liberation struggle. The exercise is expected to commence on the 25th of September 2024. War veterans who operated in specific areas will vet war collaborators, and the wartime operational command structure has been reactivated. Detachment or zone commanders will be responsible for the actual vetting, which will be supervised by the sector or region commanders. For non-combatant cadres, the vetting will be in provincial capitals across the country and will be conducted by commanders of the various transit camps. Individuals who will not be satisfied with the outcome of the vetting process have the right to appeal in terms of Section 9 of the Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Act, in terms of Section 8, subsection 8 of the Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Act. The names of the successful candidates will be listed and published in the Government Gazette for 30 days after the conclusion of the vetting exercise in order to allow members of the public to make representations. Cabinet received reports on progress made in the implementation of priority projects for the second 100-day cycle of 2024 as presented by the Ministers of Youth, Empowerment, Development and Vocational Training and the Minister of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture. The Minister of Youth, Empowerment, Development and Vocational Training, Honorable Tino Machakaire, highlighted the following achievements. The Youth Service in Zimbabwe program was successfully relaunched by His Excellency the President, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa at Nakiwa Vocational Training Center in Mashonaland East Province, and 1,082 youths were recruited for the first intake at Vumba and Dadaya training centers. A youth empowerment forum was held at Nakiwa Training Center in Mashonaland East Province with 40,000 people in attendance. Youths were given access to socio-economic opportunities available in key sectors of the economy among several ministries, departments and agencies and the private sector. An estimated 5 million youths were reached with drug and substance abuse and information by conducting national awareness campaigns through media houses including television and radio viewership and listenership respectively. The construction of an innovation hub at Ruwa Vocational Training Center in Harare Metropolitan Province is at 80% in terms of completion. The establishment of production vocational training units is at 65% in terms of completion. The construction of the Sinovo Vocational Training Center is underway, whilst plans are in place to construct the Umguza Dairy project. The Minister of Sport, Recreation, Arts and Culture, Honorable Kirsti Coventry, reported that the following progress had been recorded on projects under her purview. The resuscitation of Concession Recreation Park in Mashonaland Central Province is at 40% in terms of completion. The refurbishment of the National Sports Stadium in Harare Metropolitan Province is progressing well, with completion of the stadium water reticulation works being at 65%. The CCTV is complete. The turnstiles and venue operations control is at 50% in terms of completion, and the bucket seats installation is at 35%. The establishment of the Victoria Falls Sculpture Park in Matabeleland North Province is at 60% in terms of completion. The film strategy development is at 80% in terms of completion. And the drilling of a bore and installation of a palisade fencing at Kanyemba Arts and Culture Center in Bire, Mashonaland Central Province is underway. Cabinet considered the principles of the Science, Technology, Innovation, Startup and Knowledge-Based Economy Promotion Bill, which was presented by the Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development. The proposed principles seek to foster innovation, stimulate entrepreneurship, and propel economic growth by creating favorable conditions for startups, and after deliberations, Cabinet directed that the Attorney General and the Ministry will further refine the principles and work on the policy and administrative gaps. This will support industrialization of Zimbabwe through the promotion of science, technology, innovation, and startups, the promotion of robust knowledge-based economy in Zimbabwe, and the facilitation of science and technology agencies and institutions of higher and tertiary learnings work in implementing science and technology projects for startups. The framework will also provide for the promotion of endogenous science, technology, and innovation-driven industrial growth through startups. Cabinet considered and adopted the Broadcasting Services Amendment Bill, which was presented by the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Ziyambi Ziyambi. One of the major objectives of the Broadcasting Services Amendment Bill is to align the Broadcasting Services Act, Chapter 12.06, with the Constitution of Zimbabwe and also the Public Entities and Corporate Governance Act. The amendment will modernize the sector and also industrialize the sector. The enactment of the legislation will amend several sections of the Broadcasting Services Act. And of special mention is the amendment of Section 2A of the Principal Act on the role of the Broadcasting Services of Zimbabwe, which is to regulate and manage the broadcasting services bands for sustenance rather than for control of broadcasting service bands. The bill also provides a new provision which will prohibit the Zimbabwe National Road Authority and every motor insurance cover to sell a motor vehicle license and motor insurance policy respectively to individuals without the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation carrying radio or an exemption certificate from the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation
unless the vehicle to be insured is not equipped with a radio signal receiver. The bill mandates the national broadcaster to broadcast 75% of the content as local content. Furthermore, the bill will provide for a licensee with a sports channel to broadcast 50% of local sports content in view of the fact that sporting events are universal and international sports may bring commercial value to licensees. Honorable Vice President retired Colonel KCD Mohadi presented a report on the second high-level Indonesia-Africa Forum, which he attended from the 1st to the 3rd of September 2024 in Indonesia. The visit offered an opportunity to further deepen bilateral relations between the Republic of Indonesia and the Republic of Zimbabwe, as well as to foster mutually beneficial synergy. The second Indonesia-Africa Forum was held under the theme Bandung Spirit for the Africa Agenda 2063, which was anchored on the following 7 pillars: the outlook of the region and the prospect of cooperation, economic transformation, mining cooperation, energy, health, food security, and development cooperation. In his address to the joint session, the Honorable Vice President, Comrade KCD Mohadi, highlighted that there is need for African countries to develop their capacity to handle global pandemics. The Vice President also pointed out that Zimbabwe had already commenced discussions with Indonesia to strengthen cooperation in the health sector, specifically in the area of pharmaceuticals. He invited the Indonesian and African investors to Zimbabwe to invest in value addition and sustainable extraction in the mining sector, as Zimbabwe has rich mineral deposits. The Vice President also paid a courtesy call on the Indonesian President, during which the Indonesian President highlighted the following issues of interest to Indonesia in its bilateral relations with Zimbabwe. Indonesia's interest to enter into a preferential trade agreement and the ratification of the bilateral investment promotion and protection agreement with Zimbabwe in order to boost levels of trade and economic interaction between the two countries. Indonesia's keen interest to enter into a memorandum of understanding on cooperation in mining. The Vice President witnessed the signing of an MOU on cooperation in the field of health between the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe and the Republic of Indonesia, which focuses on improved secondary and tertiary health interventions, improved resilience in surveillance of pandemics, and improved leverage of technology in health delivery. The Minister of Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare, Honorable July Moyo, also briefed Cabinet on the forthcoming 2024 Regional World Children's Day celebrations, which will be held in Matabeleland North in Hwange District from the 15th to the 17th of November 2024, with the official event being on the 16th of November 2024. The children will interact with their heads of state, presenting to them an updated call for action building up from previous commitments. The event will be run under the theme Educate and Skill the African Child for Posterity. His Excellency the President, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, will officiate at the event. He will be joined by heads of state from Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique, and South Africa. The children will also have an opportunity to visit the Victoria Falls. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for presenting today's cabinet highlights. We now move to the first set of 3 questions. Then we will get our Honorable Ministers to respond. Then we move to the second set of 3 questions again. Then ministers will respond. Then we'll call it a day. Who is going to start? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tabu Chambaka from NRTV. My first question goes to Minister Murira regarding the startups. How much is being allocated? I think it's a good idea because you see what's happening in Silicon Valley. You recently in China, they have a district there where a lot of tech gizmos are located. So how much are you putting in there? You always say that if there's a gap in technology, there's poverty. So how much is government putting in there to support the startups? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second question. Yes.
Thank you very much, I am Jamila Mwira from Beirut. And my question relates to amendments of the broadcasting service. If I got it right, I got you well. You said exemptions from compulsory acquisition of radio license during issuance of insurance cover, or unless it would apply if the motorist is no radio gadget, something to that effect. So my question is, how do you guard against abuse when one can say he has no radio receiver and get insurance license only to procure the same later? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Yes.
Yeah, on the radio issue. What if my car is an ex-Japo and it's only, getting signal from Star FM, for instance? Is it not proper that we have these new stations who want to choose? Why are we now being hamstrung to say you have to pay? Thank you.
Thank you very much for those 3 questions. Over to you, Minister.
The first question is to Honorable Murira in terms of how much has been allocated for the startups. Over to you, Honorable Murira.
Thank you, Chair, and I wish to thank Taku for the question. I think, first of all, we must agree on a very simple principle, that industrialization comes from innovation. Whatever type, whatever thing that you use, including the gadgets that are facing me right now, they are coming from innovation. No surprises, no habrakadabra. One. Now, the only question is it endogenous innovation? Is it your innovation from country? Or is it exogenous innovation, which is innovation from elsewhere? Every industry that exists is an innovation hub. Every industry. If you don't see it, it might be in America. If you don't see it, it might be in Germany. If you don't see it, it might be elsewhere. But if you see it, it's a Zimbabwean industry. Now, government policy is to try and make a sizable number of Zimbabwean industries have Zimbabwean origin, which means if you have a problem, you dial +263 at another innovation hub. As long as you dial any other number which is not +263, it's not your innovation, it's not your industry. I thought it was very important before I answer how much. Now, industrialization through endogenous innovation is done through startups, which means we have to nurture our industry in different areas, whether it's electronics, whether it's in food making, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in machinery and everything. So government, through the Second Republic, under Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, His Excellency, when he started Heritage-Based Education 5.0, the end product of Heritage-Based Education 5.0 is a startup and then a conglomerate. It can grow and grow and grow. So there's been a lot of investment in higher education, in the innovation hubs, and we started with about 25 startups at the University of Zimbabwe about 4 years ago. Now we are supporting over 1,000 startups across the universities. It might not be interesting to say how much. I can say a lot of money. But we are spending a sizable number of some of our budget. Right now, as we speak, I think just this year, I think we've spent over 2 million on our startups. One of our startup companies is the Transtech, which is making number plates. It was a startup. It's a startup. And government spent 2 million on it to make sure that it's operational. Our startup, which is Verify Engineering, which started with oxygen manufacturing as well as nitrogen manufacturing. I will tell you that government spent 5 million for it to start. So you can go on and on. We have started, for example, a startup at Great Zimbabwe University, which is for processing traditional grain at Mandama. I'll ask you, I'll tell you that government has spent over 1 million on that startup. If you go to Bindura, we have just started again for spectacles, this startup and for making cell phones. Government has already paid also over 1 million. I'm talking about US dollars, right? And you can multiply by the number for ZIP. Now, if you go to Chinon, the milking parlor, where we can milk about 630 cows per day potential, how much did we spend? We spent almost 1 million for that startup. We started the feed factory there, almost another 1 million. You can count. And we went to, if you go to UZ, you will see that we have got an oil manufacturing factory, which is oil manufacturing feed factory. We also have the bread making factory, which we have there. Again, over 1 million. So you can see that the government of the Second Republic, under Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, His Excellency, as Chancellor of Universities, we are spending on on startups. You can see the startups that we have started. I've talked about Transtech Solutions. I've talked about factories at UZ, at Bindura, at Verify Engineering, at Great Zimbabwe, at Midland State University. We have Fine Out Engineering at Mutoko. We have started a whole industrial park, which is at Mutoko, which is over again another 2 million. So His Excellency the President is taking his time and taking resources to this. So I don't know how much, but what I know is that it's a lot of money that we are spending because we are very serious about what we are doing. Because ilizwe lakiwa ngavanikaswa nyika inovakwa nevenevanhu through startups. That's heritage-based education 5.7. I hope, Taku, I have given you more than an answer.
That's me. The question from Ramaida is how do we guard against abuse in terms of declarations? So the current amendments are there to strengthen an existing piece of legislation, which is the Broadcasting Services Act, Chapter 12.06. Before an exemption certificate is issued, the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation will have inspected the particular a listener's vehicle to establish whether the vehicle has capacity to be able to receive a signal or not. But at the same time, I want to take you back. We've discussed this matter before. The question is, how do we define a listener? We define a listener in terms of the Broadcasting Services Act, and we define an inspector in terms of Section 38D of the Broadcasting Services Act. The listener is a person who is in possession of a receiver, and in the majority of cases, this is a receiver in a motor vehicle. So before a person is issued with a motor vehicle license in terms of the Vehicle Registration Act, they must have a Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation license or an exemption. But at the same time, the same act in terms of the existing legislation provides for the penalties that are expected in the case that a particular individual is issued a false declarator in terms of the processes and procedures. And we also have put in place inspectors across the country to be able to establish, and also the police has got a responsibility to be able to enforce the Broadcasting Services Act. In terms of choice, I think the other question was in terms of you want to be able to choose whichever station that you want. The response is that the question is in terms of the licensing framework. A public broadcaster is totally different from a commercial broadcaster. It is in the licensing framework and the DNA. The commercial institution is licensed to provide and to run his business or her business commercially. The national broadcaster is licensed to provide national coverage on national events. An example is that a commercial radio or television licensee may decide not to cover parliamentary proceedings or may decide to cover parliamentary proceedings. But the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation is, in terms of the Broadcasting Services Act, mandated to cover even parliamentary proceedings, heroes' burials, issues of national interest. So the difference is the national interest and the commercial interest. A further extension is on community licensed players. It's the geography in the particular community. So the licensing framework is totally different. So the national broadcaster has a national mandate to cover all national issues. An example is with a pandemic. The national broadcaster must ensure that all citizens of the country are informed, are educated, and awareness is raised in terms of what is taking place across the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for responding to the 3 questions. Let us move to the last round of 3 questions, if there are any. Yes.
Efforts Secure SABC News. Mine relates to the war collaborators. You said that previously there was an age limit which restricted certain members of the community from being regarded or being considered as collaborators, and that has been resolved. I just want you to shed more light. Is there still an age limit, and what qualifies one to be eligible for verification to be a collaborator? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Yes.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. My name is Mukudesh Were from the Herald.
My question pertains to the National Development Strategy 1. Now, I don't know, the Minister of Finance is there, but I think this room is not short of ministers to take the question. There are targets which were set to be achieved by the National Development Strategy 1, and now it is coming to an end. Before it comes to an end, are there any other targets you feel we might miss to meet these targets? And do you have any example of those? And also, has the NDS1 surpassed the expectations? Have you met most of the targets you were planning to? When you read your presentation, there were a number of targets that you talked about that were met. So can we just have that explanation before we go to the NDS2?
Thank you very much. The last question.
Thank you. The first question is to Honorable Minister Mavunga with regards to how do we establish that a person was a collaborator. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, and thank you for asking that question. In fact, there are two questions. One is about age, the age limit. Yes, previously there was age limit. It was like anyone who had not reached 16 years by the time we came for war was not qualified as a war collaborator. But then we now learned it from the commanders who were at the front to say they ended up using those who were below age as they were not being suspected by the enemy. Like those who were aged, they could be suspected by the enemy, be arrested. Once tortured, they would reveal where the comrades would have been, like sort of selling out. But then with the youngsters, they could go on maybe playing their paper ball, their tennis balls, and no one could suspect them. So freedom fighters ended up using those ones to go and do some reconnaissance for them. So we submitted for amendment that there be no age limit, and that we rely to the information that we received from the commanders who were working with these youngsters by that time. And you said what qualifies one to be eligible. We have four categories of veterans of the liberation struggle. For the first one, which is for the veterans who went up for military training, yes, we only know that that one will have been militarily trained. Then we have the ex-detainees. You will learn that from the documents that one will be having from the prisons. And for war collaborators, collaborating, I think, as the word explains, is whereby one would have assisted the freedom fighters, or would have collaborated, and that who only know, who only learn that one is eligible from the commanders. That's why we say those who are collaborating would have to go to their areas of operation, and they will be vetted by those who were commanding them by that time. In this case, the detachment commanders and the sectorial commanders will be supervising. Then for the non-cadres combatants, these were in transit camps, and those who vet them are those who were in command structures of the transit camps that were in Mozambique, Zambia, Botswana, and they are the ones to vet those people. And after vetting, we will have to gazette their names. And if ever, like it has been said here, there will be someone wanting to say this one did not collaborate, is free to say so and to take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mavunga. The finance issues. The first issue is that the NDS-1 is coming to an end in December 2025. I want you to underline that. That's the first issue. That it has not yet come to an end. It's coming to an end in December 2025. The second issue is that the NDS terminal evaluation will be carried out during the period April 2025 to June 2025. And I also wanted you to appreciate that so far we are more than satisfied with the success stories and achievements in terms of the NDS-1. Some of the achievements include fiscal consolidation, monetary policy restoration, the liberalization of foreign exchange, market structural and governance reforms, infrastructural development, engagement and re-engagement. Let me summarize for you with practical issues so that you get an appreciation. We appreciate the success story within the development of infrastructure, the roads, the dams, the bridges, the houses that has taken place across the country. We also satisfied with the growth of the economy in terms of GDP. Before new dispensation, or before the TSP and the NDS-1, the size of the economy was below 20 billion. Now it's plus 60 billion, so it means the economy is growing. Even if we were to analyze the GDP per capita as we journey towards an upper middle income society, we are satisfied with the positive changes that have taken place. Be it in terms of re-engagement and engagement, I think we are all basking in the glory in terms of the achievements that have been led by His Excellency the President, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, in terms of the re-engagement and engagement strategy, be it in terms of a change of attitude with the Western countries, or be it the number of visitors that have visited our country. We could start with the Transform Africa Summit, where plus 6 heads of state visited Zimbabwe, plus 7 prime ministers and 40 ministers coming to Zimbabwe. This is a change in terms of international relations. We can talk about the SADC Summit. We can talk about so many success stories in terms of our international relations. So all these are achievements. We can talk about investment. Before the new dispensation, the annual investment per year was below 500 million in terms of approved projects. But now, per quarter, it's plus 500 million, which certainly means that the magnetic investment climate that has been created by His Excellency, the President, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, has ensured that a foreign direct investment improves. We can talk about education,
we can talk about salaries for civil servants, we can talk about the liberalization of the media industry, which media industry is now well represented and diverse. Many new other players, both from print, broadcasting, television, you now have 3K TV, and many other stations across the country. We can talk about food security. We've achieved that, which is part of our constitutional responsibility. Yes, right now we have a drought due to a climate-induced drought. But in terms of the hectarage that we've produced, we are wheat sufficient. We've managed to grow crops, our own food as a people. We can talk about the transformation of the education sector, be it higher and tertiary education, from the old ways in terms of learners grasping theory to now the practical implementation of heritage-based education. We can talk about so many issues in terms of the digital economy, the expansion in terms of coverage, the capacity to produce, which has totally transformed our industrial capacity to produce. So we are fully satisfied, even though we have a platform which allows us to do evaluation of the NDS1. But over the years, we've been having quarterly reports and analysis of the achievements. So the NDS2 is coming. This is the preparatory stage, which clearly shows us that this government is committed to uplifting the people and ensuring that we achieve an upper middle income society. The agricultural sector was below 5 billion, now it's plus 10 billion. The mining sector was below 3 billion, now it's plus 13 billion in terms of size. So we are more than confident and satisfied with the success stories that we have achieved in terms of the NDS1. But meanwhile, a terminal evaluation as part of the process will take place. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers. We've come to the end of today's session. Thank you very much.